on, and welcome to Buffalo Live, your
All
one-stop shop
right.
for live professional play-by-play reaction to every Bills game, as well as Super Bowl 58. That's right. You could come right over here to Buffalo Live and listen to the game with me. I'm your host, Kyle. We're also going to have discussion throughout this entire offseason to treat that Buffalo Bills withdrawal. Today, we have a special show with a special guest. He's a good friend of mine. He's an official Kansas City Chiefs representative of our NFL group message. He's a devout Chiefs fan. Please welcome Tucker. Tucker, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Kyle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, listen, before we dive into some things, we're going to talk about this Buffalo Bills offseason, and I just want to hear your perspective as a Chiefs fan, what you think the Bills ought to do. We're going to break down the keys to this Super Bowl for the 49ers, for the Chiefs. We'll do a confidence scale rating for the both of us. But before we get into that, Tucker, I want to just see where you're coming from with this game as a Chiefs fan. The Kansas City Chiefs have a Super Bowl record of 3-2. They've been to 3 of the last 4. San Fran has a Super Bowl record of 5-2. How does this Super Bowl feel compared to the others? Are you more or less excited, Tucker?
Kind of said it for a while, like throughout the regular season, that if the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, that in a lot of ways this would be the most, like, I don't want to say like rewarding, but in a way it feels rewarding just
Mhm.
because like it felt like throughout the whole regular season, you got the doubters and how everything it it wasn't always going, according to plan, and you were losing games, and to be honest, they were losing by a dropped catch, at the 5-yard line, or you got the classic ending in versus the Bills. So you had some situations like that, but I think I said during the regular season that, I kind of thought this would be their most rewarding, and I think the road that they had to take to get there, it kind of has led to that. You had to go through the Dolphins, then you had to play Buffalo, and
Mhm.
then you go and beat Baltimore in their house with the MVP, and then now you've got the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and so it feels like every game, it's like, oh, it can't get much tougher than this matchup, and it does get tougher than
Right.
that matchup.
You definitely get the feeling in this Super Bowl that these are the 2 best teams from each conference. I'm not sure if anyone's really questioning that. Um, so you mentioned the Buffalo Bills, so I want to start there, and the majority of this show will be focused on the Super Bowl. But before we get into that, um, you're a Chiefs fan. You watched the divisional round against the Bills. Sure, you saw the Bills from afar. I don't expect a dissertation here from you, Tucker, but from your perspective, what do the Bills need to do this offseason?
I think they've got to get the offensive, like, play calling situated, which
Mhm.
I think they do. You know, I think kind of last year having all they switched it up, and I think it did help. And I think
Yeah.
when you have a guy like Josh Allen, I think um it's finding, I think this offseason what they've got to do, because the fact is you do have these quote unquote windows, which, who knows what that means. I think when you have a guy like, means your window is 10 years long, how many ever years, 15 years long, whatever that means. So
Mhm.
I think this offseason, though, with the way that the cap looks and stuff, I think it's going to be challenging, but I think it's finding, okay, what does Josh Allen do best, and
Mhm.
maximizing Josh Allen with the roster around him. And
Yeah.
I think they have a lot of bright spots with a guy like Shakir. I think that's it,
Mhm.
wide receiver. I think he's going to be a really nice playmaker for the next several years. Um, as far as like the offseason goes, I think just from what I had seen is you're returning. I think defense is the number one thing that you're kind of looking at. Like, okay, you got some guys that are going to be free agents, or you had guys that are coming off of injury.
Mhm.
Um, so what I think, if I was the Bills right now, from what I had looked at it, I would be drafting a D lineman or a wide receiver, kind of in those early rounds. One of
Yeah,
those early rounds. It doesn't have to be first round, but I think just with uncertainty around Diggs, you got Gabe Davis going. I think you got to add a wide receiver one way or another.
right.
Um, and then D line, I think
Missed
Leonard
it. Yes, Leonard
is
Floyd.
Leonard Floyd. He's a
Yep.
unrestricted free agent, right?
Mhm.
So I think, you're looking at whether it's an interior D lineman, an end, or, a pass rusher. I think just adding another guy to the rotation there makes a lot of sense from my perspective. Obviously, I don't watch them every week, but
Right.
from my perspective, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think it's funny you say that because that really is where I would invest in uh from my perspective as a Bills fan. I think the number one priority is wide receiver. You need a wide receiver first of all to immediately replace Gabe Davis since he is most definitely walking in free agency. But then you need another guy to eventually replace Stephon Diggs. You need to draft a guy that has the potential to be the next wide receiver one. And you mentioned Khalil Shakir. Yes, he's a great playmaker, but to me, he doesn't. He's going to stay. I think he might, max out at that wide receiver too, and we need that alpha guy next in line. So Shakir definitely a great player we want on this offense and getting a lot of snaps. But that's I think the primary investment needing to be made, and I'm gonna be saying that all offseason. That's not going to change unless they do something here in free agency in March. But we'll see.
And I thought another interesting player on the offensive side is a guy like Dawson Knox. And then that might sound just from my, point of view, like I wonder they decide to play more two tight ends, because you do have a guy that you're invested in with Kincaid who showed a lot of promise.
Yep.
And both those guys are solid. So I kind of wonder if they play a lot more of personnel with two tight ends,
Mm-hmm.
or do they maybe see what they can get for a guy like Knox while they have uh Kincaid? I kind of think he's an interesting player as well.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, I think you gotta find a way to use James Cook
Yeah.
more. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
guy is just it's and it's ways of just getting the ball in his hands. I do view it a lot similar. I wish they would use him similar to how the Lions used David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think maybe having kind of that, bowling ball, the guy,
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna go get you, even if he only gets you 3 yards, but he's hit at the line of scrimmage and whatever it is. I
Right.
think it doesn't have to necessarily always be the most efficient. I think it's just that style of back to pair
Yeah.
him with James Cook would be just a nice duo.
Right. Yeah. Cook's not really that guy that makes. He's not the guy that's going to push the line of scrimmage. He to me, there's definitely similarities in his and Gibbs's game because they're so fast. Both of those guys are fast. I think Gibbs is able to do more laterally, but I think James Cook is. I mean, he's a straight shooter. He's very fast, just going straight forward between the tackles. He'll twist his hips a bit to make a man miss, but I think his biggest strength is that straight line speed going upfield. But it's interesting you mentioned that. Yeah, we didn't really have that other running back. We're working with Latavius Murray, who is on his final leg of his career. And we had some stats from Ty Johnson. Leonard Fournette was in for a game or two, and so but yeah, we didn't really have that David Montgomery piece. So we'll see. That's another good, interesting take there. And Dawson Knox too. I think you look at the way the league is trending. It's very much a passing league, but it's a passing league that does run a lot of 12. Um, look at the Kansas City Chiefs with their tight ends and Travis Kelsey and the Noah Grays and Blake Bells of the world. Like they are very unafraid to go 12 or 22. Um, you look at the Chiefs and it's not like they're running a spread offense. Although we think of the Chiefs as this, throw the ball all over the field type of team, they are a I think I would call them a 11 or 12 or 13 type of team with their personnel. So I don't know. Any thoughts before we hop into the Super Bowl?
No, yeah, I agree with you. I'm actually one of my kind of points later on is talking about the Chiefs and the run game. I think I 100% agree. I think people talk about Mahomes and Kelsey, and Rashee Rice is now kind of coming into that conversation a little bit
Mm,
on the as from the receiver standpoint. But I think when you see the Chiefs at their best and when they're um and like for example the divisional round in the second half, in my opinion, the Chiefs really leaned into that run game, and I
mhm.
thought that really helped Kelsey and Rice and some of those guys just to take a little bit of, pressure off of them
Yeah,
to have to feel like they had to make a play. I think when your run game is going, it just opens up somewhat.
yeah,
They say you gotta run to set up the play action. I don't believe that just because I think we've seen enough done play action without the run game, but I think it's more so just that keeping them
yeah,
balanced and the defense off, keeping them a little off, like
yeah,
not they don't feel like they know what's coming, because for a while it does kind of feel like the Chiefs get in this mode where it's like pass, 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 pass,
yeah.
where it's hard to not put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. But
Right.
I think when the Chiefs are at their best, it's one game going. They got Pacheco, you know,
Yeah,
chopping his feet to get 5 yards, whatever it is. I
yeah,
think I think that's where they're at their best.
yeah. So let's get into this Chiefs team and Patrick Mahomes. I'll let you begin. If the Chiefs win Sunday night, what's going to be the key to that? How are they going to do it? What does it start with? What does it end with? You tell me.
Yeah, so I think one of the big keys to me is just staying on schedule for the Chiefs. Like I think when you look at, they're second in the league in holding penalties. I think it's staying on schedule on offense. And I think penalties for both sides of the ball, not getting, second and 20s, like those type situations, those are just in the NFL, like defenses are so good. You got so many athletes. It's so hard to come back from anything beyond and 10, So
Mhm.
you need to stay on schedule, and I think part of that is the run game. Getting into the run game and not getting, I think it's utilizing the run and just sticking with it. I think the big thing, in my opinion, is maximizing their red zone trips. I think
Mm,
when you look at the Chiefs from the 20 to the 20, they're pretty good, but then when they get to the red zone, they're only scoring a touchdown 52% of the time. They're kicking field goals, and for a long time, I thought that was what was gonna hurt us, and it wasn't really, all the talk about the receivers and all that stuff. That didn't bother
mm.
me as much as when you look at the stats and you watch, we're not scoring touchdowns in the red zone.
Yeah.
I felt like that was eventually going to come back to bite us, and we got here. It may still come back to bite us, so I think that's going to be a key thing. I said the Chiefs score 52% of the time in the red zone, score a touchdown 52% of the time. The 49ers, for example, are scoring a touchdown 6. They're leading the league
Wow.
in touchdown percentage inside the red zone. So when you hear those two stats, the Chiefs have got to maximize their opportunities in the red
Yeah.
zone. And I think defensively, I think we've seen enough of the Chiefs by now to know they have a good defense,
Oh yeah.
but the weakness is the run. The weakness is the run defense.
Mhm.
And I think, based on what I would say is the number one offense in the NFL, personally, I don't really think it's that debatable based off what they did this year. They got an elite play caller in Kyle Shanahan, talent
Mhm.
all over the field. I think it's, stop the run, stick and then stick to what you do best as far as like tackling in space. I love the way our defensive backs tackle,
Yeah.
our linebackers pursue well. I think it's let's let's contain the run game, not let it beat us,
Yeah.
and take away some of those, take away some of those shots. If I I was looking at it earlier today. San Francisco has been like when we played them in the Super Bowl, the last time we played them in the Super Bowl, and then we played them last season, they had a
Hmm.
very high success rate, and so an offensive issue for them.
Hmm.
They've Spagnuolo, as great as he is, and I think he's one of the best ever. But as great as he is, Kyle Shanahan has found ways to score against them. Now, Brock Purdy, wasn't the quarterback of those teams. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think those are kind of the keys. If I'm gonna be like an X factor for this game,
Hmm.
I think George Kittle has the opportunity to be an X factor. I think in
Hmm.
the pass game, especially, just
Yeah.
because I think Christian McCaffrey is going to get that focus in the run game. You know about the guys like Debo and what IU can do,
Hmm.
downfield. I think George Kittle against, most into safety, I think they're going to try to use
Right.
him in those short opportunities because again, they're going to have play, they're going to make plays. They're playmakers all across the field. I think they're going to go to him in their short
Yeah.
yardage type situations. Their key down short yardage situations.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the three choose like three, keys to the Chiefs. I think that's what it comes down to.
Right.
If I added another point, it's kind of for both teams. I think it's Mahomes when the play breaks down.
Hmm.
I think the point there for the 49ers is they can't let those plays beat them. I thought that was the
Right.
difference in the game. We had two crucial plays where the play broke down and Kelsey and Mahomes or Mahomes makes a play, and that's a backbreaker. It leads to points. So I think
Yeah.
if you're the 49ers, you got to find a way to contain Mahomes and not let that beat you. And I
Right.
think, if you're the Chiefs, it's just go make plays. I think that's what Kelsey and Mahomes do best.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned a few things I want to hit on for sure. You said Kansas City staying on schedule on offense. The way I put it is keeping those chains moving. I think we're saying the same thing in two different ways. The Chiefs, they're demoralizing to play against when they're hitting completion after completion after completion, and they're not just getting them for 3 or 4 or 5 yards. They're getting them for 12, for 13, and 8. So I think if the Chiefs keep that momentum on offense, I think it's really tough to beat them. I think they're going to pick on the cornerback opposite Charvarius Ward and Diomandre Lenore. Ambry Thomas, I think, is their weak link in the secondary. So I would expect Travis Kelce to take advantage of any matchups that he finds himself against Thomas or maybe one of these linebackers. Although they've got great linebackers in Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. But so yeah, just keeping that rhythm, right? And then, like you said, the Chiefs are going to benefit, I think, from a great kicker in this game. I think if the Chiefs, you mentioned touchdowns, but I could see this game being low scoring and coming down to a kick or two. And so if they can just, even if it's those 40 yarders and Butker puts them through, I think they could win this game through, by doing that well. So that's key number one for me is moving the chains on offense. And number two is got to be rattling Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, you mentioned how Mahomes is good. When the play breaks down, I think Purdy's got that in him too. He's got that way better than Garoppolo ever did. So the Chiefs are going to have to contain and keep that internal clock of his tight. You mentioned Spagnuolo. He's great at sending pressure in creative ways. So I want to see, if I'm a Chiefs fan, some Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil blitzes. And I don't want those blitzes to go anywhere near Trent Williams because I think Trent Williams is probably, I think, behind Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the best player in this game, second best player in this game. Um, he's an excellent offensive tackle. So those are my two keys for Kansas City. Rattle Brock Purdy, keeping that internal clock tight, not letting him scramble. and moving the chains on offense. So now let's shift over to San Francisco. You already mentioned George Kittle being that X factor. Was there any other keys that you believe San Francisco will have to do in order to win this game?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with Purdy since you kind of already you kind of already talked about him. I do think the biggest matchup in this game to me is Purdy slash Shanahan versus Spags.
Mm-hmm.
I think when they played in 2022, when they played last season, Garoppolo was still the quarterback. Purdy had not taken over yet, and they were successful. I just think when you have a guy like Spags, he's so complex, and I think it helps Purdy that he has Shanahan, just like it helps Mahomes that he has a guy like Andy Reid.
Yeah.
But we've seen how Spags mixes coverage. He'll twist those DBs right up until the play starts, and it's looking like cover one, and then it turns into cover two at the snap. Like
Yeah.
he does these things that just like it's like insane when you like wow. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like this guy's a mastermind on defense with the blitz packages. So I think it's you know can Purdy process the information and can he do what he does best? He does make plays with his feet, and you know while there's a lot of debate of whether he's elite or not and all this talk, the fact is he leads the offense, an elite offense, and they put up. It's hard to say he's not one of the top quarterbacks out there when you still gotta go lead. You still gotta go lead those guys and put up the points. It's not
Yeah.
just they're out there doing
Right.
you know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna come down to Purdy and that matchup. That's kind of my big key for the offense. Defensively, I think it's who's on the D line is gonna step up outside of Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Previous matchups against the 49ers, Andy Reid has put Nick Bosa in a blender. He's throwing all kinds of different things at him. You've already got the GM and Nick Bosa saying, "Oh, what do you remember about playing them?" or "What does the Chiefs O line do?" What have you noticed? They say, "Oh, they hold a lot." They do. They are penalized second most in the league, but I think they've already kind of created that narrative. Who on the D line is gonna kind of, create some pressure? I think they want it to be Chase Young. That's why they traded for him.
Yeah.
There's even talk right after the NFC Championship game about him. I think there was rumors or murmurs of like, oh, is he gonna be benched? Is they're like, we need you this one game. I think he's gonna show up for one game, and I think he's gonna be the guy that will give him that help because I do think it can't just be one guy.
Yeah.
I think when it's one guy, it's a little too much on that one guy, and I think Nick Bosa is gonna need help, and if he gets that help, I think the Chiefs O-line, while they're athletic, they do hold, they do make mistakes. I think Mahomes could be running around quite a bit um, if one of those step up.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is for the 49ers, I think is just like I said, I think it's making sure the Chiefs aren't able to run the ball. I think it's containing the run and just like I said, not allowing the Chiefs to have their will on offense, not allowing them to get in those third and shorts where they can use Kelsey, where they can, get Rasheed Rice on these short routes and just get him the ball. I
Yeah.
think I think that's kind of my keys for the 49ers. And then, like I said, I already talked about it. I think it's can't let Patrick Mahomes just when a play breaks down, he's gonna make a couple plays, but it's those two plays, and I just go back to those two plays in the AFC Championship. Those were backbreakers for Baltimore, and I think
Mm-hmm.
they've got to somehow find a way to not let those just be killers for them
Right.
in the end.
Right. And I think the way to do it is just contain them. I'm way more comfortable with Mahomes having to make the plays from a consistently average time in the pocket as opposed to him breaking loose and scrambling. For me, if I'm a 49ers fan, just contain him, and don't let him move up in the pocket with his chest straight forward where he can see the whole field, because that's when he can throw it anywhere on the field. So I agree. I think I was going to say something similar with San Francisco's D line. So I'm a big fan of the Kansas City's interior offensive line. I think those guys are phenomenal. They shut down Buffalo for sure when we watched them in the divisional round. I think you're going to have to activate, like you said, Nick Bosa and Chase Young, if not both. And I think, we haven't really seen much of Bosa lately, as far as I'm aware. Like I didn't really see him a whole lot in these recent games. And so I think if the 49ers want to win, I think both of these guys are going to have to do well. And Chase Young, like you mentioned, this has got to be his big game. So, and I think Kansas City's tackles are two of the most vulnerable parts of this offense. If you really take the whole offense for what it is, they've got to take advantage there. And then I think the other key for them is to stop Travis Kelce. I think the Kansas City's offense, when it didn't look great this regular season, it was because, Kelce was getting 30 yards and that was it. He wasn't having his 70, 100-yard games. So Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, is going to have to effectively pick and choose when to bracket him and slow him down. So, and force him to exert that energy, because I think Kelce doesn't have as much in the tank as he did 5 years ago. So I think the more he's on the sidelines catching a breath, that's good for the San Francisco team. Okay, so final segment of the show here, Tucker. Again, thank you so much for coming on. Now we're going to shift to this confidence scale. So I'm going to phrase it like this. We've got a scale 1 to 10. 1 is, for you, the 49ers are going to destroy the Kansas City Chiefs. 5 is, this game is probably going to overtime. It's a coin flip. And 10 is, the Chiefs are going to destroy the 49ers. And what I mean by destroy is at least more than a 2-score game, right? At least 16 points. So there's your scale. What are you giving this game?
I mean, when you ask me right now, it's hard to not feel really good. I'm always, pretty confident a few days before, and then by the time we get to kick, by the time I wake up on Sunday, I'll be a little bit more nervous, thinking about the Debo Samuels, the Ayuks, the George Kittles, the Christian McCaffreys. Like, those guys, they're just so good. It feels like, how can anybody stop them? But then right before kickoff, I'll get back to where, I think we'll win. I gotta say, I think this defense has just instilled probably too much confidence. I know I'm a homer. I really am at like a 7 or 8. I think with the way Rashee Rice has come on, I think it's freed up. And I want to say too, it's not even just Rashee Rice coming on. The Chiefs have condensed their personnel. They've shown different personnel groupings, but they've condensed the guys that are on the field. So I think, they're getting the most out of each guy. I'll go with this probably, which, is probably a little too high, but it's hard not. This defense in Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to bet against them right now.
I to be honest, Tucker, I don't think it's too high, because I'm at a 7.7 towards Kansas City winning. That's coming from someone who, not a shocker here. I'm not a huge fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm a fan of what they've done and how they've built this team, but I would be lying to you if I said I was rooting for them. So I have Kansas City winning this game by 8, and it's not going to be a close one either. It's going to be Mahomes with the ball at the end, kneeling the ball. So I do think the Chiefs will win comfortably in this game. And if you look at the past several Super Bowls, the past 2 were won by just 3 or less points. but the previous 4 were decided by 8 or more points. And I just think we're due for another one that's, was it close really? So I think, and I just look at the way these two teams are playing right now and how confidently they're both playing, and I'm giving it to the Chiefs. So 7.7 for me. Tucker, any last thoughts before we close the show out?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I got. I'm happy you asked me to join, and anytime in the future, I'm always happy to join again. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Best of luck to your Chiefs this Sunday night. And once again, if you're watching this,
Thank you. Thank you.
stay tuned to Buffalo Live. If you'd like to listen to the game live, even if you want to just stop in and drop a like or a comment, that would help the channel tremendously. And we will be going through this off season together. So I want to thank my special guest, Tucker, once again. This has been Buffalo Live, your one-stop shop for live professional play-by-play reaction to every Buffalo Bills game. I'm your host, Kyle, and we will see you next time. Go Bills.
Buffalo Bills football. Buffalo